Light winds and an upwind slog to the coast of Portugal. No easy miles gained for any of our teams on leg 7 of the Ocean Race. Welcome to the Ocean Race Show. Yesterday we tried to give a little insight into some of the work that our trimmers are doing in order to go fast. And while speed in any sailboat race is important, if the course is big enough and you do enough miles, it becomes far more vital to think about where you are going than simply speed. And in this edition of the Ocean Race, on our final leg, there's a lot for our navigators to do.
The racing tactics and racing navigation is one of the most important skill sets to have on a boat like this. The navigator gets a lot of weather forecasts, computer, route planning, looking at statistics for those kind of legs, and then he has a brain by himself also. And like sometimes it's easier. The routing, the statistics, and the brain all thinks the same thing, then you go there. But sometimes the routing says go this way, the statistics say go the other way, and your mind doesn't really know where to go, and then you gotta be smarter. And sometimes they're all wrong.
Most of the models that I'm looking at below deck on the screen are not taking into account all the local things, such as the clouds and other things you can only see when you're on deck. So on days like these, it's important to be on deck as well and communicate with the crew and see what they're seeing. And then change your plan based on that.
This is exactly what we talked about on yesterday's show. The right-hand shift that was refusing to arrive, meaning the boats needing to make decisions on what was happening now, despite the forecast saying differently. While waiting for the wind, Wind Whisper Racing Team, already further west than most of the fleet, kept trying to make progress south on any small shifts they could find. The fight against sailing extra miles paid off, and Wind Whisper Racing Team held on to their 60-mile lead, exiting the Bay of Biscay, still looking strong. The fight for second and third between Merperi Trifort Racing Team and Team Yayo was bow to bow, and the two boats came within a few miles of each other, with Merperi Trifort Racing Team reacting quickly to keep ahead.
We just did quite a quick tack, and a sail change at the same time, just to stay with Yayo because they're coming across us on starboard. And it was sort of unexpected to find them this close to us. So we did everything in a bit of a hurry. We just weren't able to empty this ballast tank properly before we tacked. So we were trying to do it now when you're on the opposite tack, but unfortunately this is sitting higher than the exit for the tank, or the outlet for the tank. So you can't drain the tank properly, so we weren't sure how much water was in there, so I just wanted to check. And turns out we probably had over 100 litres of water in there, so it's a good thing we did it. So now we don't have 100 litres of water sitting on the leeward side. And we'll be back up to full speed in no time.
Merperi Trifort Racing Team and Team Yayo down at the bottom of the tracker on this freeze frame, and they have been locked into a tight battle for second and third. I want to talk about Viva Mexico and Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Genova, and this moment where their tracks converged on their way down. It was really important to position your tack to head south based on what the breeze was going to do. Let me show you why. So on the way down here, the challenge for our teams was how far you were going to sail out towards that western side. If you didn't sail enough out this way and you tacked too early, then you'd be coming down the wrong side of the TSS and you would have to do more maneuvers to get round because the breeze just wasn't shifting to help you get round there. But if you went too far, then you'd be sailing down extra distance. And that is exactly what's happened here between Viva Mexico and Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Genova. The Austrians went further to the west, and when they tacked over, they were lined up pretty nicely. Viva Mexico came over and tacked, but you can see how instantly that wind shift to the right finally started to deliver. It was only a few degrees, but the track of the Mexicans starts to curl up and they start to make good progress south. Austrian Ocean Racing, powered by Team Genova, already out to the west. They just simply sailed extra miles. And you can see how the Austrians and the Blue Trail were reaching further in to the TSS, giving away that distance that they sailed. It was really small, a tiny little, maybe a gamble by Viva Mexico, but it paid off. For the Austrians alongside, they could see how much Mexico had gained.
We are really close to the Mexicans, and today we expect to sail really close to the Spanish and the Portuguese coast, hoist the A4 and do a lot of jibing. So action-packed day.
And even now, though they are next to land and out of the Bay of Biscay, the decision between speed and distance sailed is still dominating the tactics.
So we are now close to the Portuguese coast. So Spanish coast there, Portuguese coast there. We sailed past the traffic separation zone, pretty close to Mirpuri Trifork. They were first on our leeward side, and now they're going on a bit of a higher course. So the choice here is, do you want to sail less distance or do you want to sail in more pressure? We think sailing on this side means more pressure on the long term, and we think it's worth the extra miles. So yeah, it's now about 500 miles to the Strait of Gibraltar, and looking pretty light in between. So between here and Lisbon, and then between Lisbon and Strait of Gibraltar looks like more breeze. So yeah, let's see.
For our Amoca fleet, the enormity of the remaining miles and the slow speeds that the boats are doing in the light winds are beginning to make this final leg feel longer than ever for our sailors.
Not so much wind, but the boat is in good shape and the crew is in good shape and the OBR is nailing it, so yeah, it's really good.
You know when we will arrive in Genova?
I don't know.
28.
Yeah, I know, 28. Huh?
In the evening.
Yeah. Oh, you know it. Oh, that's almost. That's in 10 days. I will.
We are 5 days into this leg, but the slow progress that our boats are making is already getting the sailors to be thinking about provisions and making the food that they have on board last. Their current ETA is the 27th, 2 days later than we initially forecast. And while that might change, the sailors need to think about preserving food now, just in case.
Bringing back the leftover food of the day, all the things that nobody wants to eat, but all the things that we will eat anyway if we run out of food before arriving to Genoa. It's really slow. There is Asian noodle that everybody is fed up. There is beef and not potato, I think. We love it, but we ate too much. There is again potato, and very important, leftover of paper toilet.
Bioturn planning ahead and making things last, just in case. Team Milizia are back in third and struggling to make up the miles. And the action on this leg is very different to the racing that we've seen with Team Milizia on previous legs.
It's definitely not a leg to be underestimated, even though it's the last one. It's a long way. I think anything could still happen right up to the finish, so we're definitely not out of the game. We're still going to, keep racing. There's going to be lots of opportunities to catch up. So we'll keep sailing fast. But also, I think it's been quite enjoyable so far. Nice summer conditions. The sea's been relatively flat, and it's like a whole different environment on board as well, like completely different sailing conditions to what we've had the other 90 days that we've been at sea. So yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it a lot.
The Amocas are now all heading south, reaching off towards the south of Spain, and happily the wind is being much more helpful.
Since last night we're on a course south to Spain and Portugal. And this is the first time we're going fast, This is we're doing 21, 22 knots. Feels good because we've been more like doing like 7 or 8 knots the whole time. So finally some speed, but it's not going to last long because we're going to be into some light weather again in Portugal.
While the Imocas make their way to the southern tip of Spain, Guyot Environment Team Europe, having retired from this leg, are heading home. It will be a slow journey for them, being unable to use their light wind sails since the crash. The sailors will be in Genova, but first Benjamin Dutroux is taking the boat back to France. For Guyot Environment Team Europe, their sailing in this edition of the Ocean Race has come to an end. This team was forged from the victorious offshore team Germany in the Ocean Race Europe. Robert Stanjek and Benjamin Dutroux took the energy from that victory onto a foiling Imoca and into this edition of the race. And while they started on the back foot with less funding and less resources and less time than the other teams, early on, in the opening stages of Leg 1, we saw the kind of racing that would define this team's experience. A bad fill during the opening turns of Leg 1 put them behind. Bold and confident tactics blasted them up into second only 16 hours later. Guyot Environment Team Europe's mix of solo offshore racers and Olympic sailors meant they did things differently, finding the eastern route through the doldrums when no one else dared and being the first boat to cross the equator on Leg 2. Their lead was brought to an end by the towering clouds that lie in wait south of the doldrums, always ready to engulf yachts travelling through this region. And the team had to watch the fleet sail around them while struggling to escape.
Our lead melted away and we are still not going. We have 2 knots now of breeze. It's very frustrating.
As the leg reached the Southern Ocean, Benjamin's team found themselves nearly 400 miles behind the leaders. But fighting to the end, they brought that down to only 50 miles. No difference in position, but showing the speed this team could find at times.
Come up, go steer up, upwind.
It was to be a similar story of great sailing and bad luck on Leg 3. The team were in second place, just 13 miles behind the leaders, when their boat started breaking apart under their feet.
Annie et Charles, ils ont entendu un crack à l'intérieur et un petit panneau qu'on descend là au sol qui est laminé. We can continue like this. So the time is to come back in Cape Town and to prepare the shed to repair. But no, sorry.
Returning to Cape Town, the team repaired and reinforced their hull before sailing west to join the fleet in Brazil. On Leg 4, heading north to Newport, the team were in a neck-and-neck race battle for first place, reaching at over 25 knots in perfect conditions.
It's close, we are in the game.
They were forced to slow up and turn downwind when their deployment line for the hydrofoil broke, needing immediate repair. The delay put them 300 miles behind as the favourable conditions stretched the others further north. But it also gave Sébastien Simon, the navigator, a chance to play things differently. And he found a way round Bioterme and into third, 2 days out of Newport.
Oh no! Oh no, 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 no! Dismissed it!
That night, the wind reached over 50 knots. And in the violent sea state, the team was the second boat to lose their mast on this leg.
Pas possible, putain!
The first challenge now was to get the boat and the crew safely ashore. From there, it was uncertain if the team would have the time to repair the boat and fit a new mast to rejoin the race. But with the help of their partners, their shore team, and the other teams in the race, the crew made it to Aarhus with a new mast and a boat ready to race. After establishing the best 24-hour run in Leg 6, the team went on to win the import race in The Hague, following a blistering start and sailing up and reaching over the others. Their team were on a high after showing to the fans and also themselves what they could do and took to the water to begin the last leg. They started strong, taking places and moving up into third during the harbour section of the leg. But that was when one moment's mistake had a big impact on them and the race. After returning to the dock, sadly for Guyot Environment Team Europe, they had no way back from the damage. And for this passionate team who have been through so much together, their sailing in the ocean race has come to an end. We have a little bit of a treat now because we can actually go on board one of our VO65s, check in with the sailors and see what the conditions are. We've got the Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Genova on the line, and Cecilia Zorzi is here. Celia, thank you very much for taking the time out of the race to talk to us. But first of all, for yourself, for your race, for your team right now, this is kind of a special leg, isn't it, sailing into Genova?
Yeah, definitely. We are going home actually. So it's gonna be crazy for sure. I can't wait to be there actually. But it's still a long way to go. So we are keeping the focus on the boat for now, and we'll think about the party later.
And what's the racing been like? Because on the tracker, from what we see, you guys are, well, it's all pretty tight.
Yeah. It's been a very dry trip so far, actually. Very light. We had some very light hours. But from yesterday afternoon, we actually got some speed, some reaching, and we are back inside with the other boats, and it's super tight all the time. So it's very challenging.
What about the wildlife? We've seen some amazing videos of the dolphins and all the rest of it. I mean, have you been treated to some of that?
Yeah. Lots of dolphins. Actually, we think even a whale. So, yeah, and amazing skies. I mean, with these conditions, the sky is so clear, the colors are amazing. So, very, very nice trip.
And just turning to your team, everybody's experience in the ocean race is a little bit different, whether it's coming back from multiple times. But your team, the route for Austrian ocean racing, now with Team Genova as well, it's a bit unusual compared to some of the other teams. It really is a kind of, young, ferociously enthusiastic sailors just wanting to take on this challenge. It must feel quite amazing to be here on the final leg, on the water, still racing.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, we are a bit unusual. We are kind of a mix that just came together, actually. So it's nice to see how the group evolved during the legs. From leg one, even now, we have actually Devsy driving right now, so it's very nice to see more women involved in the race every time. So it's, it's so nice to be out here with this group of people. We are all very passionate, and as you say, we may not be the more experienced team, but for sure we give all we have.
You gave us a little bit of a nice view just round there. Can you keep that turn going? Can you show us the cockpit and the view in front of you?
Yeah, so now it's very light, actually, very, very light. So it's some fine tuning going on. We are just trying to find our way to the Portugal coast, and then we'll see.
The boats racing on our final leg are pushing down south towards the southern tip of Spain, but they still have about 2 days to go before they even reach the Strait of Gibraltar. And after that, there is an awfully long way to go through the Mediterranean with all its tricky and unpredictable conditions. Whatever lead they've been able to pull out at the moment, they are going to have to fight very hard to keep their eyes firmly glued to the tactics ahead. The decisions coming up are going to be crucial.